It hurts too much, whispered the young woman as the powerful man moved closer, his presence overwhelming her senses. His eyes flashed with an inhuman gold as his lips curled into a knowing smile. The pain will turn to pleasure, he replied, voice deep and certain. The forest around Olivia Pierce closed in like a trap. Her breath came in desperate gasps as she ran between ancient oaks, their shadows stretching like clawed hands across the leaf-strewn ground. Something was wrong with her body. Heat crawled beneath her skin, a fever that had nothing to do with her desperate flight. Her vision blurred, then sharpened with unnatural clarity. Sounds amplified, then faded. The sensation terrified her more than the footsteps she could hear gaining ground behind her. 30 miles away, Mason Gray stopped mid-sentence during the board meeting of Gray Industries. The executive boardroom fell silent as the CEO suddenly stiffened, his nostrils flaring slightly. The scent hit him like a physical blow. Impossible. After centuries of waiting, after generations of disappointment, the scent of an omega in his territory cut through the sterile air of corporate power like a forgotten memory. The board member shifted uncomfortably as Mason's eyes momentarily gleamed with an inhuman light. "Meeting adjourned," he said, his voice brooking no argument. No one dared object as the most powerful man in New York stood and straightened his immaculate suit. "We'll continue tomorrow." As the room emptied, Mason walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The beast within him clawed at his consciousness, demanding release. An omega. Here. Now. His omega. The curse that had plagued his bloodline for centuries surged in response, turning what should have been elation into searing pain behind his ribs. Mason weathered it stoically as he had endured all pain throughout his unnaturally long life. Jack Reynolds, his beta and closest confidant, remained in the room after the others had filed out. "What is it?" he asked, recognizing the tension in his alpha's stance. Mason didn't turn from the window. "She's here. An omega." Jack's sharp intake of breath was the only indication of his shock. "After all this time, are you certain?" "I would know that scent in death," Mason replied. His hands clenched at his sides. "Find her, before the others sense her too." Olivia Pierce hunched over her laptop in the university library, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she organized her research notes. At 25, she was younger than most PhD candidates in Columbia University's anthropology department, but her work on Native American folklore had already garnered attention from prominent scholars in the field. Her current focus on shapeshifter legends had started as academic curiosity. Now it felt like obsession. Something about the ancient stories of humans transforming into wolves called to her on a level she couldn't explain. The dreams had started months ago. Dreams of running through forests on 4 legs instead of 2. Dreams of moonlight and pack and belonging. Dreams that felt more like memories. Olivia rubbed her eyes, trying to focus. The library windows revealed a slate-gray October sky hanging over New York City. The same dream had woken her again last night. Running through an unfamiliar forest pursued by something she couldn't see but instinctively feared. Each time the dreams became more vivid, more urgent. Professor Johnson had called her research groundbreaking just yesterday when she'd uncovered references to a mysterious tribe called the Onyx, whose members were said to possess the ability to transform into wolves at will. Most scholars dismiss such tales as metaphorical or hallucinogenic in origin. Olivia wasn't so sure. Her phone vibrated with text from Professor Johnson. "Gray collection access approved. Museum curator expects you tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is extraordinary. Make the most of it." Olivia's heart raced. The Gray collection at the Museum of Natural History was legendary among anthropologists. Accumulated by generations of the wealthy Gray family, it contained artifacts and manuscripts related to Native American culture that were unavailable anywhere else. Researchers rarely gained access to the collection, which remained under the strict control of the current Gray patriarch. This could make her career. This could answer questions that had haunted her since childhood. Questions about why she never felt like she belonged anywhere. Why foster home after foster home had felt temporary regardless of how kind the families were. Why something always seemed to be missing a hole in her chest that nothing could fill. What Olivia didn't know was that across the city, Mason Gray sat in his penthouse office watching the sun sink below the horizon. At 40, his dark hair was touched with silver at the temples, but his face remained unlined, his body powerful beneath his tailored suit. To human eyes, he appeared to be a man in his prime, blessed with genetics that belied his age. The truth was far more complicated. Mason Gray was Alpha King of the Eastern Packs, the most powerful werewolf in North America. His family had ruled the territory for centuries, maintaining order among the packs and keeping their existence hidden from human society. The Gray business empire provided cover for their activities and ensured they had the resources needed to protect their kind. The curse that afflicted his bloodline was older than America itself. Every alpha of his line was destined to feel love as pain, pleasure as torment. A cruel twist of fate designed to keep the most powerful beings from experiencing the one emotion that might soften their resolve. Mason had built his empire across the eastern seaboard, living in a restored manor in the Hudson Valley, surrounded by loyal pack members who respected the distance he maintained from the heart of his own existence. The curse had made him cold, calculating, ruthlessly effective. It had also left him profoundly alone. Jack entered the office without knocking, their long friendship transcending protocol. "The board is concerned about your abrupt departure," he said, placing a folder on Mason's desk. "The board serves at my pleasure," Mason replied coolly. "Any word on our unexpected visitor?" Jack's expression tightened. "Nothing yet, but we're not the only ones who might have sensed her. Victor Reed has been unusually active lately." Mason's jaw clenched at the mention of his oldest enemy. Victor Reed led the Crimson Pack, a group that had opposed the Gray leadership for generations. Unlike Mason, who valued tradition and order, Victor sought power at any cost, disregarding ancient laws that had kept their kind safe for centuries. "He knows," Mason said, certainty in his voice. "Somehow he already knows about her." "Impossible," Jack argued. "If an Omega had appeared, we would have sensed it first. This is our territory." Mason turned to face his beta, his eyes cold. "Victor has spies everywhere. We can't underestimate him." What neither man realized was that Victor Reed had indeed learned of the potential Omega through less supernatural means. His human employees had flagged an interesting research proposal from a Columbia University doctoral student whose background check revealed anomalies. An orphan with no known relatives. Foster care records that mentioned unusual incidents. A blood test from a routine medical exam that had been flagged in their system due to markers that were almost but not quite human. Victor had already dispatched watchers to observe Olivia Pierce. He remained uncertain whether she was truly an Omega or merely carried latent genes, but either way, she represented an opportunity. Omegas were thought extinct, their bloodlines diluted or hunted to extinction centuries ago. If she was indeed an Omega, possessing her would give him unprecedented power. Power enough, perhaps, to finally challenge the Gray dominance. The following morning, Olivia arrived at the Museum of Natural History, her heart pounding with anticipation. The Gray collection occupied a private wing accessible only to approved scholars. The curator, a nervous man named Dr. Winters, led her through security protocols that seemed excessive for academic materials. "The Gray family is extremely protective of these artifacts," Dr. Winters explained as they reached a secure room lined with glass cases and climate-controlled storage units. "You have 2 hours today." Mr. Gray was most insistent about the time limit. "Mr. Gray approved this personally, Mom," Olivia asked, surprised. "Mason Gray oversees all access to the family collection," Dr. Winters said. "He'll actually be here later today for a board meeting. The Grays have been major benefactors of the museum for generations." Olivia nodded, already distracted by the treasures before her. Ancient manuscripts, ceremonial objects, detailed records of tribes long forgotten by mainstream history. She began carefully photographing and taking notes on anything related to the Onyx tribe or shapeshifter legends. Nearly an hour into her research, she found it. A small leather-bound journal written in a combination of English and an indigenous language she didn't recognize. The journal belonged to a missionary who had lived among the Onyx in the early 1800s. As Olivia carefully turned the brittle pages, her fingers brushed over a strange symbol embossed on the inside cover. The moment her skin contacted the symbol, a jolt of electricity shot up her arm. The room around her seemed to vibrate, colors intensifying, then fading. For an instant, she thought she heard howling in the distance. Mason Gray was concluding his meeting with the museum board when he felt it. A surge of energy that made every supernatural sense he possessed stand at attention. The Omega was here in his museum, close enough that her scent filled his consciousness, drowning out all other thoughts. He ended the meeting abruptly and strode through the museum halls with purpose, following the scent that called to him on a primal level. Security guards and staff stepped aside, instinctively responding to the aura of authority that surrounded him even when he wasn't consciously projecting it. Mason reached the secure room just as Olivia was returning the journal to its case. She turned at the sound of the door opening, and their eyes met across the room. Time stopped. The air between them seemed to crackle with invisible energy. Olivia felt her heart stutter, then race. Every instinct told her to run, yet her body refused to move. The man before her radiated power unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair and eyes that shifted between gray and ice blue. His tailored suit did nothing to hide the strength beneath, but it was more than his physical appearance that overwhelmed her. Something about him reached past her conscious mind and grabbed hold of something primitive inside her. For Mason, the moment was equally cataclysmic. Her scent enveloped him, confirming what he already knew. An omega. His omega. His wolf surged forward with such force that he nearly staggered. The curse flared in response, turning what should have been joyful recognition into twisting agony that darkened his expression. Olivia took a step back, alarmed by the intensity of his gaze. "I'm sorry, I have permission to be here. Dr. Winters can confirm." Mason forced his features into a neutral expression, despite the pain radiating through his chest. "Miss Pierce, I presume." "I'm Mason Gray." "Oh, Mr. Gray, I didn't realize. Thank you for allowing me access to your collection. The materials are extraordinary." Mason moved closer, drawn despite the increasing pain her proximity caused. "What specifically interests you about the Onyx tribe?" "Their shapeshifter legends," Olivia replied, scholarly enthusiasm momentarily overcoming her unease. "They're unique among indigenous folklore in their detail and consistency. The Onyx describe werewolves not as monsters but as protectors organized in complex social hierarchies with distinct roles. Roles such as," Mason prompted, watching her intently, "alphas, betas, and—" Olivia hesitated, feeling suddenly lightheaded as she met his gaze. "Omegas. Though references to omegas are rare and often described as having been lost or destroyed." Mason nodded, maintaining a careful distance. "And why does this particular aspect of folklore fascinate you, Miss Pierce?" Before Olivia could answer, her phone chimed with text alert. She glanced down reflexively, then froze. The message was from an unknown number. "Get out now, you're in danger." Mason noticed her sudden pallor. "Is something wrong?" I need to go," Olivia stammered, gathering her notes with shaking hands. "Thank you for the access to your collection." She moved toward the door, instinct screaming at her to put distance between herself and the inexplicable danger she sensed. As she passed Mason, their shoulders brushed accidentally. The contact sent a shock through both of them. Mason inhaled sharply as pain lanced through him, far more intense than the constant ache of her presence. Olivia gasped as something electric raced along her nerves, awakening a sensation she'd never experienced before. For an instant, Mason's eyes flashed gold. Olivia saw it clearly, unmistakably inhuman. She ran. Mason let her go, fists clenched at his sides as he fought for control. He could pursue her, should pursue her. Every fiber of his being demanded he claim what was his, but centuries of discipline held him in place. The curse ensured that any attempt at connection would bring nothing but pain. The kindest thing he could do was stay away. Even as he thought it, he pulled out his phone and called Jack. "She was here. Find her. Keep her safe." "From Victor?" Jack asked. "From everyone," Mason replied, "including me." Outside the museum, Olivia hurried down the steps, mind racing. The text message, the strange reaction to the journal, the man with eyes that changed color, the jolt when they touched. None of it made sense yet. All of it felt connected to the dreams, to the emptiness inside her that had never been filled. She was so distracted she didn't notice the men following her until she turned down a less crowded side street. 3 of them moving with a predatory grace, closing the distance between them with each step. Olivia quickened her pace, heart hammering against her ribs. A black SUV pulled alongside her, its tinted windows revealing nothing of the occupants. The vehicle kept pace with her as she walked faster, then began to jog. The men behind her broke into a run. Panic seized her. She sprinted, ducking down an alley in hopes of losing her pursuers. It was a mistake. The alley ended in a chain-link fence too high to climb quickly. Olivia turned to retrace her steps but found the entrance blocked by the three men. Their eyes gleamed with an unnatural light in the shadowed alley. "Miss Pierce," one of them said, his voice carrying a rumbling undertone that raised the hair on her arms. "Our alpha would like to speak with you." "I don't know what you're talking about," Olivia said, backing away until she felt the fence behind her. "Leave me alone or I'll scream." The men exchanged amused glances. "Screaming won't help you here," another said. "You'll come with us one way or another. Victor Reed doesn't like to be kept waiting." As they advanced, Olivia felt something strange happening to her body. The same fever from her dreams spread through her limbs. Her vision sharpened, unnaturally, colors becoming more vivid. Her hearing amplified until she could hear the men's heartbeats. Fear and something else, something primal, surged through her veins. "Stay back," she warned, voice shaking. The men continued forward, untroubled by her resistance. But before they could reach her, another figure appeared at the alley entrance, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with lethal grace. "The lady said to stay back," Jack Reynolds stated, his voice carrying authority that made the three men hesitate. "This doesn't concern Gray's pack," the leader growled. "The Omega is unclaimed." "She's under our protection," Jack corrected, stepping further into the alley. His eyes flashed amber. "Leave now, and Victor doesn't need to know you failed." For a tense moment, Olivia thought violence was inevitable. The air thickened with tension as the men faced off. Then reluctantly, Victor's men backed toward the alley entrance. "This isn't over," their leader warned. "She belongs to Victor. The strong take what they want, and Gray has grown weak." Jack's lip curled in a subtle snarl. "Tell Victor, if he wants war, we'll give him war." The men retreated, disappearing into the busy street beyond. Jack turned his attention to Olivia, who pressed herself against the fence, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Miss Pierce," he said, his voice gentler now. "I'm Jack Reynolds. I work with Mason Gray. You're in danger and I'm here to help you." "What's happening to me?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who were those men? What did they mean by Omega?" Jack approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "I can explain everything, but not here. We need to get you somewhere safe first. Victor Reed's men won't give up so easily." Olivia hesitated, caught between fear of the unknown and the instinctive understanding that this man was telling the truth. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't," Jack admitted. "But consider this, if I wanted to harm you, would I have chased away those men?" It wasn't the most reassuring argument, but Olivia's options were limited. The strange sensations in her body were intensifying. She needed answers more than safety at this point. "Where are we going?" she asked, accepting the inevitable. "A safe house nearby," Jack replied, leading her toward a sleek black car parked at the curb. "Mason will meet us there." "I don't understand any of this," Olivia said as she slid into the passenger seat. "The dreams, the fever, my research. It's all connected somehow, isn't it?" Jack glanced at her as he pulled into traffic, surprise evident in his expression. "Dreams. How long have you been having them?" "Months now," Olivia admitted. "Running through forests, being chased, feeling like I'm not entirely human." Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You're more perceptive than most. That will make this easier." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Miss Pierce, what do you know about werewolves?" Olivia almost laughed, but something in his expression stopped her. "They're myths, folklore, cultural metaphors for the beast within humanity." "And if I told you they're not myths at all," Jack asked, his eyes briefly meeting hers, "that werewolves walk among humans every day, hidden in plain sight, that you, Olivia Pierce, carry the blood of the most rare and valuable werewolf, designation of all." The car stopped at a red light. Olivia stared at Jack, searching for any sign he was joking. Finding none, she felt something shift in her, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. The dreams, the emptiness, the never belonging. "I'd say you sound insane," she whispered. "Except for the fact that I just saw three men with glowing eyes try to kidnap me. And your eyes changed color too. And Mason Gray's." The light turned green. Jack accelerated through the intersection. "We're not insane," he said quietly. "And neither are you. You're an Omega, Olivia, the first true Omega to appear in generations. And that makes you very valuable. And very much in danger." As the car wound through Manhattan traffic, Olivia gazed out the window at the city she thought she knew. Everything looked the same, yet everything had changed. She couldn't go back to the life she'd had before. Something told her that once she learned the full truth, nothing would ever be the same again. In his penthouse office, Mason Gray stood at the window watching the city below as darkness fell. The pain in his chest had settled into a persistent ache. After centuries alone, fate had shown him his mate only to remind him that the curse made any connection impossible. Every touch would bring agony instead of comfort. His phone rang. Jack's voice came through crisp and urgent. "I have her. She's safe. Victor's men made a move, but I intercepted them." Mason closed his eyes briefly in relief. "Bring her to the safe house. I'll meet you there." "She's already asking questions, Mason, smart ones. And she's been having dreams. Her Omega nature is awakening on its own." "Tell her nothing more until I arrive," Mason ordered. "This changes everything, Jack. If Victor gets his hands on an Omega—" "He won't," Jack promised. "Not while any of us draw breath." Mason ended the call and gazed at his reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty clouded his mind. The curse had shaped his existence for so long, he barely remembered life before it. Now with Olivia's appearance, impossible hope warred with bitter experience. If anyone could break the curse, it would be an Omega. But was he willing to risk her suffering to attempt it? The curse ensured that what should bring comfort brought pain instead. The experiments of previous generations had proved that attempts to circumvent it only made the suffering worse for both parties. The kindest thing would be to keep her safe, teach her about her nature, then let her go. Find her a suitable mate from another pack, one not afflicted by the gray curse. Someone who could give her the connection she deserved without the pain that came with his touch. The very thought sent a wave of possessive rage through him. "Mine," his wolf snarled within his mind. "My Omega." Mason straightened his shoulders, decision made. He would meet with Olivia. Pierce explained her nature and the danger she faced. He would assign protection to keep her safe from Victor and others who might seek to use her. And then he would step back, maintaining the distance that centuries of pain had taught him was necessary. Even as he made this resolution, something deeper, something primal whispered that fate would not be so easily denied. The appearance of an Omega after so many generations could not be coincidence. Their paths had crossed for a reason. The moon rose over New York City full and bright. Mason felt its pull, the urging of his wolf to run free beneath its light. Tonight, more than any night in recent memory, the human facade felt constrictive, inadequate to contain the emotions warring within him. He turned from the window and headed for the elevator. Olivia Pierce awaited. His Omega, his curse, his impossible hope. The hunt had begun. The safe house was a luxury penthouse apartment in a discreet building near Central Park. As Jack led Olivia inside, she noticed the elegant but understated furnishings, the state-of-the-art security system, and the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline. Nothing about it felt temporary or makeshift. "This is a safe house?" Olivia asked, unable to keep the incredulity from her voice. Jack smiled slightly as he deactivated the security system. "The Gray family has resources. Make yourself comfortable. Mason will be here soon." Olivia crossed to the windows, gazing out at the city lights. The fever that had seized her earlier had subsided to a low simmer beneath her skin. Her senses, however, remained unnaturally sharp. She could hear Jack's heartbeat from across the room, smell the faint scent of pine, and something wild that clung to him. "Those men," she said without turning. "What would they have done if they'd taken me?" Jack's reflection in the window showed his expression hardening. "Victor Reed is an alpha with ambitions. He seeks power above all else with no regard for our laws or his traditions. An Omega would be valuable to him." "You keep using that word, Omega. What does it mean?" Olivia turned to face him. "And don't tell me to wait for Mason. I deserve some answers now." Jack considered her for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. In simplest terms, werewolves have designations that define their place in pack hierarchy. Alphas lead beta support, and others fill various roles. Omegas are the rarest designation, thought to have died out generations ago. And you think I'm one of these Omegas based on what Olivia challenged, though her racing heart betrayed her certainty that his words contained truth. "You're scent for one," Jack said. "Every wolf has a distinctive scent signature. Omegas have a unique quality that can't be mistaken for anything else. The fact that Victor's wolves tracked you confirms it. They wouldn't have bothered otherwise. But I'm not a werewolf, Olivia protested. I've never transformed. I would know if I were some kind of supernatural creature. Omega traits can lie dormant for generations, Jack explained. You're likely descended from wolves who chose to live as humans, diluting the bloodline without eliminating it completely. Your research into the Onyx tribe suggests you were unconsciously seeking answers to questions about your heritage. The elevator chimed before Olivia could respond. Jack straightened, tension visible in his posture. A moment later, Mason Gray strode into the apartment, his presence immediately filling the space. Olivia felt it like a physical pressure against her skin, commanding attention and respect. Miss Pierce, Mason greeted her, his voice deep and controlled. He maintained a careful distance, positioning himself across the room from her. I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. Are you unharmed? Olivia found herself unable to look away from him. The same inexplicable attraction she'd felt at the museum returned tenfold. Something primitive within her responded to his presence, recognizing something her conscious mind couldn't comprehend. I'm fine, she managed. Confused, scared, but physically unharmed. Mason nodded. Jack has explained the basics of your situation. He says I'm something called an Omega werewolf, Olivia said, watching Mason's face carefully. That I'm valuable, that people are hunting me. What he hasn't explained is why I should believe any of this. A faint smile touched Mason's lips. A valid concern. Would evidence help? Before Olivia could answer, Mason's eyes shifted from icy blue to brilliant gold. The change was swift and unmistakable. No contacts or trick of the light could explain it. Olivia took an involuntary step backward, her back pressing against the window. That's, she began, then faltered. How did you? It's a partial shift. Mason explained, his eyes returning to normal. Full transformations are more dramatic, but I doubt you're ready for that demonstration just yet. Olivia's mind raced, trying to reconcile academic knowledge with the living proof before her. Assuming I believe you, which is a significant assumption, what does this mean for me? Am I going to start changing, growing fur and fangs at the full moon? Your Omega nature is awakening, Mason said, his tone matter-of-fact. The dreams, the enhanced senses, the fever you've experienced, these are all signs. Whether you undergo a full transformation depends on various factors, including exposure to established wolves and certain triggers. He paused, studying her with an intensity that made her skin flush. What matters now is keeping you safe while you adjust to this new reality. Victor Reed won't be your only pursuer once word spreads that an Omega has appeared. Why? Olivia demanded. What makes Omegas so special that people would hunt me? Mason and Jack exchanged each a glance. It was Jack who answered. Omegas possess unique abilities. They can soothe the savage nature of other wolves, ease pain, strengthen pack bonds. In ancient times, packs with Omegas were stronger, more stable. Some legends suggest they could even break curses. Olivia didn't miss the way Mason's jaw tightened at those last words. Curses, now you're talking about magic. What would you call transformation into a wolf? Mason asked quietly. Where do you think the line between science and magic exists in a world where such things are possible? The question silenced her. He was right, of course. If werewolves were real, why not curses too? I'd like to offer you my protection, Mason continued. A suite at my estate in the Hudson Valley where you'll be safe from Victor and others who might seek to use you. Jack and others from my pack can teach you about your nature and help you control the changes you're experiencing. And in exchange, Olivia asked, wariness in her tone, what do you want from me? Mason's expression remained impassive. Your safety is paramount. You're an Omega in my territory, which makes you my responsibility. That's not an answer, Olivia challenged. You're a businessman, Mr. Gray. No one offers protection without expecting something in return. Yes, a flicker of respect showed in Mason's eyes. Perceptive. In wolf terms, offering protection typically implies claiming rights over the protected. But I assure you my offer comes with no such expectations. His words should have reassured her, but Olivia sensed an omission. Something in his carefully neutral expression suggested complications he wasn't sharing. I appreciate the offer, she said slowly, but I need time to think. This is overwhelming. Of course, Meepa nodded. However, I must insist you remain here tonight. Victor's men will be watching your apartment. Tomorrow we can discuss arrangements that respect your autonomy while ensuring your safety. He moved toward the elevator, maintaining the strange distance he'd kept since arriving. Jack will stay to answer any questions and ensure your security. I have business to attend to. You're leaving, Olivia asked, surprised by the disappointment that coursed through her. Mason pauses back to her. It's better this way, he said, his voice containing a roughness that hadn't been there before. Without further explanation, he entered the elevator and was gone. Jack sighed as the doors closed. He's not usually so abrupt. What isn't he telling me? Olivia asked, turning to Jack. There's something about me that affects him specifically, isn't there? I saw how he reacted when we touched at the museum. It hurt him somehow. Jack hesitated, loyalty to his alpha warring with the need to prepare Olivia for what lay ahead. It's not my place to explain Mason's personal matters, he said finally. But yes, there are complications regarding your Omega nature and his position as Alpha King. Alpha King, not just Alpha. Mason isn't merely the leader of a single pack, Jack explained. He's the ruler of all Eastern packs, the most powerful werewolf on this side of the country. His bloodline has maintained order among wolves for centuries. Olivia processed this information, trying to fit it into her rapidly expanding worldview. And this bloodline has some issue with Omegas. Not with Omega specifically, Jack said carefully, but there are aspects of his heritage that make certain connections problematic. Before Olivia could press for clarification, Jack's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened to the caller. Understood. Increase security and inform Catherine. I'll tell him. He hung up and turned to Olivia. Victor's gathering allies. We've detected unusual movement among several packs that typically support him. What does that mean? Olivia asked. It means you should reconsider Mason's offer sooner rather than later, Jack replied grimly. The safe house will hold for tonight, but Victor's resources are substantial. He won't give up easily. Sleep eluded Olivia that night despite the luxurious guest bedroom Jack showed her to. Her mind whirled with impossibilities that had become reality in the span of a day. Werewolves, alphas and omegas, Mason Gray with his golden eyes and inexplicable pain. Victor Reed hunting her for powers she didn't understand or believe she possessed. She dozed fitfully, waking frequently from dreams more vivid than ever. Running through forests, the scent of pine and earth. And new elements, a silver wolf with ice blue eyes running beside her, protecting her from shadows that pursued them both. When morning came, Olivia made her decision. Whatever this new reality entailed, facing it alone wasn't an option. She needed allies, information, and protection. For now, at least, Mason Gray offered all three. Jack drove her to the Hudson Valley estate later that morning. As they passed through massive wrought iron gates and wound up a tree-lined drive, Olivia's jaw dropped at the sight of Mason's home. The manor house was a magnificent stone structure that looked like it had been transported from the English countryside, surrounded by acres of manicured grounds that gave way to dense forest. This isn't a house, Olivia murmured. It's a castle. Jack smiled slightly. It's been in the Gray family for generations. The original structure was built in the late 1800s, though Mason has modernized the interior considerably. As they approached, Olivia noticed figures moving across the grounds. Some were clearly security personnel, but others moved with the same predatory grace she'd observed in Jack and Mason. Pack members, she realized. This wasn't merely a home, but a sanctuary for werewolves. The car stopped at the front entrance where Mason awaited them. In casual clothes, dark jeans, and a charcoal sweater, he looked no less powerful than he had in his business suit. Sunlight caught the silver in his dark hair, and his eyes, now a clear blue-gray, watched her intently as she emerged from the car. Miss Pierce, he greeted her. Welcome to Gray Manor. Olivia felt it again as she approached him, that strange pull that made her simultaneously want to move closer and run away. Her senses, still unnaturally enhanced, picked up his scent, something masculine and wild like cedar and night air. Her heart raced traitorously. Thank you for your hospitality, she said, stopping at what seemed a safe distance. I've decided to accept your protection, at least temporarily. Something flickered in Mason's expression, too quick to interpret. A wise decision. Jack will show you to your suite. Once you've settled in, perhaps you join me in the library. I believe you'll find my collection of onyx manuscripts more extensive than what the museum holds. The offer caught her interest immediately. I'd like that. And Mason nodded and turned to Jack. Ensure Miss Pierce has everything she needs. Catherine will arrive this evening to begin instruction. As Mason walked away, Olivia couldn't help but notice how he moved with the confident grace of an apex predator, completely at ease in his territory. Despite his civilized appearance, there was something untamed about him that called to something equally wild within her. Jack showed her to a suite of rooms in the east wing of the manor, a beautiful space with a bedroom, sitting room, and private bathroom decorated in soothing blues and creams. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate grounds and the forest beyond. "This is for me," Olivia asked, stunned by the luxury. "Mason wanted you to be comfortable," Jack said. "The east wing is private, separated from the main pack quarters. You'll have space to adjust at your own pace." After Jack left, Olivia explored her new accommodations. The closets already contained clothing in her size, everything from casual wear to elegant dresses. The bathroom was stocked with high-end toiletries. A desk in the sitting room held a new laptop and a stack of books on wolf mythology from various cultures. The thoroughness of the preparation was both impressive and slightly unsettling. How long had Mason been expecting her? Or did he simply command resources that made such arrangements effortless? After showering and changing into jeans and a soft sweater from the provided wardrobe, Olivia made her way to the library. She followed Jack's directions through the manor, noting the blend of traditional architecture and modern amenities. The few pack members she passed regarded her with undisguised curiosity, but maintained a respectful distance. The library took her breath away. 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with ancient tomes and modern volumes alike. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, comfortable leather seating arranged before it. The scent of old paper and leather binding filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of the burning logs. Mason stood near a large wooden table where several manuscripts lay open. He looked up as she entered, and again Olivia felt that inexplicable pull. It was stronger here in his personal space, surrounded by his scent. "You look more rested," he observed, his deep voice resonating in the spacious room. Olivia approached the table, careful to maintain distance between them. "The circumstances are surreal, but I can't deny the accommodations are excellent." A hint of a smile touched Mason's lips. "I believe in providing comfort when possible. Life offers enough hardships without adding unnecessary discomfort." "Is that why you stay away from me?" Olivia asked directly. "Because my presence causes you discomfort." Mason's expression stilled, surprise briefly visible before his features resumed their usual control. "You're observant. You wince when I get too close," Olivia said. "At the museum when we touched, you looked like you were in pain." "Why is that, Mr. Gray?" "Mason, please," he said, then hesitated before continuing. "There are aspects of my nature as Alpha that complicate interactions with an Omega, particularly an Omega who is—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Who is what?" Olivia prompted. Mason's gaze met hers directly. "Who is potentially compatible as a mate?" The word hung in the air between them, charged with implications Olivia only partially understood. "A mate, you mean like wolves in the wild, for life?" "Werewolves retain many aspects of wolf nature," Mason explained, "including the recognition of compatible mates. It's rare and usually instantaneous, a recognition on a level beyond conscious thought." "And you think I'm your mate?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "My wolf recognized you the moment we met," Mason confirmed. "But there are complications." "The pain," Olivia said, understanding dawning. "Something about me causes you physical pain." Mason turned away, moving to the fireplace. The flames cast his face in shadow as he spoke. "Not you specifically. My bloodline carries a curse placed centuries ago by enemies of the Gray Pack. Every alpha of my line is destined to feel love as pain, pleasure as torment." He turned back to face her, his expression grave. "When mates connect, there should be comfort, pleasure, a sense of completion. The curse twists these sensations into their opposite. What should bring money brings suffering instead." Olivia struggled to process this revelation. "So when we touched, it felt like fire in my veins," Mason said quietly. "Sharp and immediate, then spreading like ice through the body." "I'm sorry," Olivia said, genuinely distressed by the thought of causing him pain. Mason shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for. The curse is my burden to bear, as it has been for every gray alpha for generations. Is there no way to break it? Olivia asked. A shadow crossed Mason's features. Many have tried. All have failed. The magic that created the curse was ancient and specific, designed to exploit the very strength of alpha instincts. Olivia approached the table again, drawn to the manuscripts spread there. Ancient drawings depicted wolves in human form, some with crowns or symbols of authority. One illustration in particular caught her eye, a crowned wolf standing protectively over a smaller figure, whose aura was drawn in gold. The Alpha King and his Omega, she read from the caption beneath. Together they balance power with mercy, strength with healing. She looked up at Mason, who watched her with an unreadable expression. These don't read like fiction or folklore. They're written as historical accounts. Because they are, Mason said, the history your academic world has forgotten or dismissed as myth. Olivia's fingers traced the illustration, a question forming in her mind. If Omegas were known for healing and balance, is it possible they could heal a curse? Mason's body tensed visibly. There are theories, he admitted reluctantly. Ancient texts speak of the unique bond between alphas and omegas as having transformative properties. But as I said, omegas were thought extinct until you appeared. There's no record of how an omega might affect the curse. The implications hung heavy between them. Olivia felt the weight of possibility of a connection to this man that transcended ordinary understanding. It terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Is that why you're helping me? She asked softly. Because you hope I might break your curse. Mason moved closer, stopping just short of the distance that seemed to cause him discomfort. I'm helping you because you're an omega in my territory under my protection by right and responsibility. Whether you ever choose to explore the mate bond between us is entirely your decision, Olivia. I would never presume or pressure. The formal declaration carried the weight of centuries of tradition, yet Olivia heard the man beneath the Alpha King, the loneliness of an existence defined by pain and duty. Something within her, the omega nature she was only beginning to understand, responded to his words with a surge of protectiveness that surprised her with its intensity. Before she could respond, the library door opened. A striking woman with auburn hair and sharp features entered her presence, commanding attention immediately. Catherine, Mason greeted her. You're early. Catherine's gaze fixed on Olivia, assessing her with an intensity that felt almost physical. So it's true, she said. A genuine omega I had to see for myself. Olivia, this is Catherine Shaw, Mason introduced them. Alpha of the Riverdale Pack and my ally for many years. Olivia noted the designation immediately. A female alpha, I thought. Catherine's lips curved in a slight smile. That alphas were exclusively male, a common misconception even among our kind. Female alphas are rare but not unheard of. Catherine has agreed to help with your training, Mason explained. Her experience with new wolves is extensive, and as a female alpha, she offers perspective I cannot. Training for what exactly? Olivia asked. Control, Catherine replied simply. The changes you're experiencing will intensify. Without proper guidance, your emerging abilities could become dangerous to yourself and others. As if summoned by her words, the now familiar fever swept through Olivia's body. Her vision blurred, then sharpened painfully, colors becoming unnaturally vivid. Sounds amplified, the crackling fire suddenly as loud as a bonfire, the steady heartbeats of Mason and Catherine thundering in her ears. It's happening again. Olivia gasped, doubling over as her muscles spasmed painfully. Catherine was at her side immediately, her touch firm on Olivia's arm. Breathe through it, she instructed. Don't fight the sensations. Let them flow through you like water. Mason moved back, his expression torn between concern and the necessity of maintaining distance. The pain in his eyes as he watched her struggle cut through Olivia's own discomfort. Even suffering himself, he worried for her. Focus on my voice. Catherine continued, her tone commanding but gentle. Your body is remembering what it means to be wolf. The first transitions are always the hardest. Olivia closed her eyes, following Catherine's instructions. Gradually, the overwhelming sensation subsided to manageable levels. When she opened her eyes again, both Catherine and Mason were watching her with expressions of approval and something like awe. What? Olivia asked, disconcerted by their stares. Your eyes, Catherine said softly. They changed. golden like honey in sunlight, the mark of an omega. I changed, panic threaded Olivia's voice. Am I going to transform completely? Catherine shook her head. Not yet. Partial shifts come first, especially for latent wolves. The full transformation requires specific triggers and training. Mason had moved to the far side of the library, maintaining the distance that seemed to ease his discomfort. Catherine will help you understand and control these episodes. With time, you'll be able to manage the shift at will, rather than having it triggered by stress or strong emotion. Olivia nodded, still shaken by the experience. And these abilities you mentioned, the ones that make omegas valuable, they'll manifest gradually, Catherine explained. The most fundamental is the calming influence on other wolves. Omegas can soothe the savage nature, help maintain control during times of stress or full moons. Other abilities vary but often include heightened empathy, healing touch, and the strengthening of pack bonds. Which is why Victor wants me, Olivia concluded. An omega would make his pack stronger, give him an advantage against other alphas. Among other reasons, Catherine agreed, her expression darkening. Victor's ambitions extend beyond mere pack strength. He seeks dominance over all Eastern packs, a position Mason has held for generations. An omega under his control would give him leverage against even an alpha king. Olivia glanced at Mason, who stood silhouetted against the windows, his powerful frame rigid with tension. How long have you been alpha king? Longer than you might believe, Mason replied enigmatically. The Gray Line has maintained order among the Eastern packs for centuries. Victor's family, the Reeds, have opposed our leadership for nearly as long. It's more than mere politics, Catherine added. The Reeds believe in dominance through fear and force. Mason governs through respect and tradition. Two fundamentally different philosophies of leadership. And I'm caught in the middle, Olivia said, the reality of her situation settling heavily upon her. Not in the middle, Mason corrected. Under my protection. Victor will not touch you while I draw breath. The fierce declaration sent a shiver through Olivia that had nothing to do with her emerging omega nature and everything to do with the man behind the alpha. Despite the curse, despite the pain her presence caused him, his determination to protect her was absolute. Catherine observed the exchange with knowing eyes. We should begin your training immediately, she said to Olivia. The more control you gain, the safer you'll be regardless of external threats. Mason nodded in agreement. Use the East Courtyard. It's private and secure. As Catherine led Olivia from the library, she glanced back at Mason. He stood by the fireplace, one hand braced against the stone mantel, his posture suggesting he fought an internal battle. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and Olivia felt again that inexplicable pull, the sense of connection that transcended ordinary understanding. In that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She would master this new reality, these emerging abilities. And somehow she would find a way to ease the burden Mason had carried for too long. The East Courtyard was a secluded space enclosed by stone walls covered in ivy. A central fountain provided gentle background music as water splashed into the basin below. The October air carried a crisp chill, but Olivia barely noticed it, her body temperature naturally higher since the changes began. Werewolf physiology differs from human in several ways, Catherine explained as they sat on a stone bench. Enhanced strength, speed, and senses are the most obvious. But there are subtler differences too. Accelerated healing resistance to most diseases, longer lifespans. Longer lifespans, Olivia questioned. How much longer? Catherine's smile held secrets. That depends on the wolf's power and designation. Betas might live twice a human lifespan. Alphas considerably longer. And Mason, Olivia pressed. How old is he really? That's his story to share, Catherine replied. But I'll say this, he's seen more history than your academic studies would suggest possible. The revelation added another layer to the enigma that was Mason Gray. Olivia tried to reconcile the modern businessman with the possibility that he had lived through events she had only read about in history books. Now, Catherine continued, let's focus on controlling your shifts. The key is understanding that your wolf isn't a separate entity, but another aspect of yourself. Not a beast to be caged, but a nature to be embraced and directed. For the next hour, Catherine guided Olivia through exercises designed to help her recognize and manage the sensations that preceded a shift. They practiced breathing techniques, mental imagery, and methods to channel the enhanced senses that threatened to overwhelm her. You're a natural, Catherine observed as Olivia successfully calmed herself after an intense surge of sensation. Most new wolves struggle for weeks to achieve what you've managed in a day. Maybe it's the omega in me, Olivia suggested. Or perhaps my academic background helps. I'm used to analyzing and categorizing information. Catherine nodded thoughtfully. Both likely, and something else too. There's a strength in you, Olivia, a core of determination that will serve you well in this new life. As they continued practicing, Olivia felt her confidence growing. The changes that had terrified her began to feel less like an invasion and more like a homecoming, a return to something her body had always known but her mind had forgotten. By late afternoon, she could control the partial shift enough to change her eye color at will, a seemingly small achievement that Catherine assured her represented significant progress. They were concluding the session when Jack appeared at the courtyard entrance, his expression tense. Catherine, a moment. As the two conferred in low voices, Olivia focused her enhanced hearing, catching fragments of their conversation. Movement along the northern boundary. Victor scouts. Mason wants increased security. Catherine returned her face, betraying none of the concern Olivia had heard in their exchange. We'll continue tomorrow, she said briskly. You've made excellent progress today. Rest this evening and allow your body to adjust to the changes. Victor's men are near the estate, aren't they? Olivia asked directly. Catherine's eyebrows rose slightly. Your hearing has improved faster than expected. Is Mason in danger because of me? The question revealed more of Olivia's growing attachment than she'd intended. Mason has dealt with Victor's provocations for longer than you can imagine, Catherine assured her. The estate is secure with multiple layers of protection, both technological and supernatural. Focus on your training and let Mason handle the security concerns. Despite Catherine's reassurances, unease settled in Olivia's stomach as she returned to her suite. The reality of her situation struck home with new clarity. Her existence threatened a power balance that had maintained peace among werewolves for generations. People were willing to fight, perhaps kill, to possess or protect her. After showering and changing for dinner, Olivia decided to explore the manor further. The east wing opened onto a gallery lined with portraits, generations of Grey family members, watching from gilt frames as she passed. She studied their faces, noting the resemblance that threaded through the generations of the same strong jawline and penetrating eyes that Mason possessed. One portrait in particular caught her attention, a man who could have been Mason's twin, dressed in the fashion of what appeared to be the early 1900s. The nameplate identified him as William Gray Alpha King, 1872-1923. My grandfather, Mason's voice came from behind her. Olivia turned startled. Despite her enhanced senses, she hadn't heard him approach. He stood at a careful distance, hands clasped behind his back, his posture formal yet somehow vulnerable. The resemblance is remarkable, she said. He could be your brother. Mason's lips curved slightly. The Gray genes run strong through the generations. Catherine mentioned longer lifespans, Olivia said carefully. But not how much longer. How old are you really, Mason? He studied her for a long moment as if weighing how much truth to share. I was born in '7, he said finally, though officially my records show 1985. Olivia's breath caught. You're over 200 years old. 230 this past spring, Mason confirmed, young by some standards, ancient by others. The casual acknowledgement of his impossible age left Olivia speechless. Mason had lived through the Civil War, both world wars, the entire technological revolution of the 20th century. The historical perspective he possessed was staggering. Does it get easier? She asked softly. Living so long, watching the world change around you. Something darkened in Mason's eyes. Some aspects become easier, others harder. The world changes, but people remain fundamentally the same. And loneliness, he paused and continued more formally. The curse ensures that certain comforts remain out of reach. The vulnerability in his admission touched Olivia deeply. Despite his power, his wealth, his centuries of experience, Mason Gray was profoundly alone. The curse had isolated him from the one connection that might have made his long existence bearable. I've been researching, Olivia said, changing the subject to spare him further discomfort. The manuscripts in the library contain references to rituals between alphas and omegas, bonding ceremonies that supposedly enhance the abilities of both. Mason's expression closed immediately. Those rituals belonged to a different time when omegas were common and understood their nature from birth. They're not applicable to your situation. Why are you dismissing them so quickly? Olivia challenged. Some specifically mention healing and transformation. If there's even a possibility they could affect the curse, the risk is too great. Mason cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. Those who attempted to circumvent the curse in the past suffered consequences far worse than the original affliction. I won't subject you to that danger. The protective declaration warmed Olivia even as it frustrated her. Shouldn't that be my decision if I choose to take the risk? Mason's expression softened slightly. Your courage is admirable, but you barely understand your own nature, yet let alone the complexities of ancient wolf magic. Focus on your training with Catherine. Master your abilities first. Then we can discuss possibilities. Before Olivia could argue further, a distant howl echoed across the estate grounds. Mason stiffened his head, turning sharply toward the sound. What is it? Olivia asked, alarm rising at his reaction. Intruders, Mason said grimly. Stay here, security will come for you. He moved with inhuman speed toward the main entrance, leaving Olivia alone in the gallery. Through the windows, she could see activity on the ground, shadowy figures moving with purpose toward the perimeter. A second howl closer this time sent a shiver down Olivia's spine. Without conscious thought, her body responded to the sound, a surge of protective instinct flooding her system. Mason was out there, potentially in danger. The man who had offered her safety and truth when her world turned upside down. Before she could analyze her reaction, Jack appeared at the end of the gallery. Miss Pierce, he called urgently, we need to move you to a secure location. What's happening? Olivia demanded as she hurried to join him. Victor's wolves, Jack explained tersely, leading her toward the interior of the manor. Testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Standard intimidation tactics. Is Mason in danger? The question escaped before she could censor it. Jack's expression softened briefly. Mason can handle himself. He's been dealing with Victor's challenges for decades. He led her to a lower level of the manor, a modernized space that contained what appeared to be a command center. Monitors displayed security footage from around the estate. Several pack members worked at computers or communicated via headsets. On the largest screen, Olivia saw Mason standing at the estate's northern boundary, Jack at his side. Opposite them stood a group of men led by a striking figure with copper-red hair and a lean, predatory build. Even through the video feed, his menacing presence was palpable. Victor Reed, Jack confirmed, noting her attention. Coming in person is unusual. He typically sends underlings for these provocations. Olivia watched as Mason and Victor conversed, their body language tense. Though the security feed had no audio, she could see Victor's expression shift from arrogance to anger as Mason spoke. Victor gestured emphatically, pointing toward the manor house. Pointing toward her, Olivia realized with a chill. Mason's response was impossible to miss, even without sound. His posture straightened, power radiating from him in almost visible waves. Even Victor took an involuntary step backward before catching himself. What just happened? Olivia asked. Mason asserted his authority as Alpha King. Jack explained, something like pride in his voice. It's a dominance display that only the most powerful alphas can project. Victor may be strong, but he's no match for Mason in a direct confrontation. After another tense exchange, Victor and his wolves retreated. Mason watched until they disappeared into the forest before turning back toward the manor. Even through the security feed, Olivia thought she detected weariness in his movements. Will they be back? She asked. Eventually, Jack acknowledged. Victor doesn't surrender easily, but he won't risk open conflict with Mason unless he believes he can win. And my presence changes the equation, Olivia concluded. If he could control an Omega, he might have the advantage he needs. Jack nodded grimly, which is why your training is crucial. The more you understand your own abilities, the less vulnerable you'll be to manipulation or control. Olivia stared at the monitor where Mason now walked back toward the manor, his powerful frame silhouetted against the gathering dusk. In just days, her life had transformed from academic routine to supernatural conflict. The man on the screen, both human and wolf, cursed and powerful, had become the center of a storm she was only beginning to comprehend. I want to help, she said suddenly, turning to Jack. Not just hide and be protected. I need to understand everything, my abilities, the politics between packs, The history of the curse. If I'm going to be part of this world, I want to be an asset, not a liability. Jack studied her respect evident in his expression. That's exactly what Mason hoped you'd say. The guest suite library has been stocked with texts specifically chosen to educate you on pack history and politics. And Catherine has prepared a training schedule that will help you develop your abilities systematically. And the curse, Olivia pressed. Will anyone help me understand that too? Jack's expression grew cautious. The curse is personal to Mason. He guards that knowledge closely. Because of the pain it causes him. Partly, Jack acknowledged, but also because previous attempts to break it have had devastating consequences. Not just for the Alpha, but for those who tried to help them. The warning was clear, but it only strengthened Olivia's resolve. I'm not afraid of consequences, Jack. I've spent my life searching for where I belong. Now I know why nothing ever felt right. This world, these abilities, they're part of who I am. And if I can help Mason while finding my place, that's what I want to do. Jack's expression softened. You truly are an Omega. The desire to heal, to help, it's fundamental to your nature. As they spoke, the door opened and Mason entered his presence, immediately filling the space. His gaze found Olivia, instantly relief visible in his expression, before his usual control reasserted itself. Victor won't attempt anything further tonight, he informed them, but he's growing bolder. We need to accelerate security measures and Olivia's training. I was just telling Miss Pierce about the resources we prepared for her education, Jack said. Mason nodded, maintaining his careful distance from Olivia. Good. Knowledge is as important as physical training in your situation. I want to learn everything, Olivia stated firmly, including about the curse. Mason's expression tightened. Jack, give us a moment. When they were alone, Mason approached as close as his comfort allowed. The curse isn't academic material, Olivia. It's a painful reality that has shaped my existence for centuries. I appreciate your interest, but some burdens aren't meant to be shared. What if sharing is exactly what's needed? Olivia challenged gently. The manuscripts mention balance between Alpha and Omega, power and healing, strength and compassion. Ancient folklore. Mason dismissed, though something in his eyes suggested uncertainty. Is it history your world has forgotten? Olivia countered, using his own words from earlier. You took a chance revealing your world to me. Why not take one more chance on the possibility that together we might achieve what hasn't been possible alone? Mason studied her conflict evident in his expression. The Alpha King, accustomed to command and control, warred with the man who had lived centuries with pain as his constant companion. Hope, dangerous and fragile, flickered briefly in his eyes before caution reasserted itself. Your courage continues to impress me, he said finally. But I've seen too many suffer from hasty attempts to circumvent the curse. Master your Omega abilities first. Understand this world you have entered. Then perhaps we can discuss possibilities. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't an outright refusal either. Olivia recognized the concession for what it was, a crack in the armor Mason had built over centuries of isolation. I'll hold you to that, she said with a small smile. As they stood there, the Alpha King and the newly awakened Omega, the air between them seemed charged with possibility. The mate bond Mason had mentioned pulled at them both, urging closer connection despite the pain it would cause him. Olivia felt it like a physical tether binding her to this man she barely knew yet somehow recognized on a level beyond conscious thought. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger from Victor's ambitions, from the awakening of her own nature, from the curse that kept Mason isolated despite his power. But for the first time since learning of her Omega heritage, Olivia felt not just acceptance, but purpose. She would master this new reality. She would find her place in this hidden world. And somehow she would find a way to ease the burden Mason had carried alone for far too long. The hunt had only just begun. Dawn broke over the Hudson Valley estate, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Olivia stood at her suite window watching the forest awaken. 3 weeks had passed since she'd accepted Mason's protection, a period of intensive training with Catherine that had left her physically exhausted but mentally exhilarated. Her Omega abilities were emerging more rapidly than anyone had anticipated. She could now control the partial shift at will, changing her eyes from their normal hazel to luminous gold. Her senses had sharpened to the point where she could identify individual pack members by scent alone. Most significantly, she had begun to manifest the calming influence unique to Omegas, able to soothe agitated wolves with her presence. Catherine had been both demanding and encouraging, pushing Olivia's limits while acknowledging her exceptional progress. "You're a natural," she'd said just yesterday. "Most wolves take months to achieve what you've managed in weeks." Despite this progress, Victor's threat remained. His wolves regularly probed the estate's defenses, testing for weaknesses. Mason had doubled security, limiting Olivia's movement to the manor and immediate grounds. The restriction chafed, but she understood its necessity. What troubled her more was the complexity of her growing connection to Mason. Though unfailingly courteous, he maintained his careful distance, joining her for meals, but always seated at the opposite end of the long dining table, participating in discussions about her training, but never directly involving himself. The few times they'd accidentally drawn too close, she'd seen pain flash across his features before he quickly retreated. Yet despite this physical separation, their bond strengthened. Sometimes she would enter a room and sense he had been there moments before, his distinctive cedar and night air scent lingering. Occasionally during training, she would glance up to find him watching from a window or doorway, his expression intense before he disappeared. This morning, Olivia had woken with a strange restlessness beneath her skin. Catherine had warned her about this feeling, a sign that her wolf nature was growing stronger, seeking expression. Soon Catherine had explained she would need to attempt a full transformation. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Jack stood in the hallway, his expression unusually tense. "Mason would like to see you in his study," he said without preamble. "Is something wrong?" Olivia asked, immediately alert. "Victor is making his move," Jack replied grimly. "We've detected unusual activity among his allies. Several packs that typically remain neutral have gathered at his territory." Olivia followed Jack through the manor to Mason's study, a wood-paneled room filled with books and artifacts from his long life. Maps covered the large desk, and several pack members stood reviewing them when she entered. Among them was Timothy, a young wolf who had recently joined the security team. He kept his eyes down as she passed something Olivia found curious but dismissed as shyness. Mason looked up from the discussion, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Olivia," he greeted her, "thank you for coming." With a gesture, he dismissed the others. Timothy lingered a moment longer than necessary, his gaze darting between Mason and Olivia before Jack ushered him out. Alone now, Mason moved to stand before the fireplace, maintaining his customary distance. "Jack says Victor is gathering allies," Olivia said, watching him carefully. Mason nodded, his expression grave. "Intelligence suggests he's planning something significant, something beyond his usual provocations." "Because of me," Olivia stated rather than asked. "Your presence has accelerated his timeline," Mason acknowledged, "but Victor has coveted my position for decades. You're merely the catalyst, not the cause." "What will he do?" "Most likely he'll attempt to infiltrate the estate," Mason said. "His spies report on your training, your emerging abilities. The stronger you become, the more desperate he grows to possess you before your powers fully manifest." The clinical assessment of her situation should have frightened Olivia, but instead she felt a surge of determination. "Then we should prepare. Catherine says I'm progressing faster than expected. Perhaps it's time to attempt the full transformation." Something flickered in Mason's eyes, an emotion too quick to identify. "Catherine believes you're ready. She says my wolf is very close to the surface. The restlessness, the dreams, they're all signs that I'm approaching the threshold." Mason was silent for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that seemed to see beyond her surface to the wolf within. A first transformation is dangerous even under ideal circumstances, with Victor's threat looming. "All the more reason to do it now," Olivia argued. "If I can access my full abilities, I won't be just a liability to protect. I could help defend the pack." Pride flickered across Mason's features before concern reasserted itself. "Your dedication to the pack is admirable but unnecessary. Protecting you is our responsibility, not the other way around." "I'm not looking for your permission, Mason," Olivia said softly but with unmistakable resolve. "I'm informing you of my decision. Catherine has agreed to guide me through the process tonight." For a moment, alpha authority radiated from him, a reflexive response to her challenge. Then remarkably it subsided. In its place, Olivia saw respect and perhaps something deeper that neither of them was ready to name. "Very well," he conceded. "The ceremony will take place in the sacred grove beyond the eastern meadow. It's traditionally used for first transformations protected by old magic that enhances the connection between human and wolf. Olivia hadn't expected his acceptance. You're not going to argue. A hint of a smile touched Mason's lips. Would it make a difference if I did? Probably not, Olivia admitted. Then I'll save my breath. His expression grew serious again. But I'll ask one thing of you. Allow me to be present for the transformation. Not participating, he added quickly. That would be Catherine's role, but watching over you. The request surprised her. Won't it be painful for you to be that close to me during such an intense experience? Yes, Mason said simply. But some pains are worth enduring. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to fully explore. Olivia felt a warmth spread through her chest, a response to his willingness to suffer for her safety. Then yes, she said softly, I'd like you to be there. Their conversation was interrupted by Jack's return, his expression grave. We've just received word from our scouts. Victor's forces are mobilizing. They'll be within striking distance of the estate by nightfall. Mason's posture shifted immediately, Alpha Authority radiating from him. Implement Security Protocol Omega. Full perimeter coverage, all pack members on alert. Already in progress, Jack confirmed. Mason turned back to Olivia. The timing is concerning. Victor may know about the planned transformation. How could he? Olivia asked. We've suspected a leak within the pack for some time, Jack explained. Information has reached Victor too quickly to be coincidence. Olivia recalled Timothy's strange behavior moments earlier, but said nothing. Accusations without evidence could damage pack unity at a critical time. Mason's expression hardened. The transformation must proceed regardless. If Victor is planning to strike better, you have access to your full abilities. I'll inform Catherine to prepare at time, Jack said, exiting swiftly. Left alone again, Olivia studied Mason's face, noting the tension around his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders. You're worried, she observed. Concerned, he corrected. Victor is unpredictable, especially when desperate, and a first transformation leaves a wolf vulnerable. But you'll be there, Olivia said, surprised by the certainty in her voice. Something softened in Mason's expression. Yes, I will be there. The day passed in a flurry of preparation. Catherine worked with Olivia on meditation techniques designed to ease the transition between human and wolf forms. Jack oversaw security arrangements, positioning pack members strategically throughout the estate grounds. Mason coordinated with allied packs, calling in reinforcements to counter Victor's growing forces. As twilight approached, Catherine led Olivia to the sacred grove, a circle of ancient oak trees deep within the estate forest. Mason followed at a distance, his presence a reassuring constant despite the space between them. The grove felt different from the surrounding forest, charged with an energy Olivia could feel against her skin. Moss-covered stones formed a natural circle at its center. A small fire burned there, casting dancing shadows among the trees. This place has witnessed thousands of first transformations. Catherine explained, her voice hushed with respect. The energy of all those transitions lingers here, making the barrier between human and wolf thinner, easier to cross. Mason remained at the edge of the grove, positioning himself against one of the massive oaks. Even at that distance, Olivia could sense his focus on her, his concern, and something deeper, something that called to her on a primal level. The process is straightforward, but intense. Catherine continued, drawing Olivia's attention back. You'll remove your clothing, which would restrict the transformation. Then kneel by the fire and focus on your breath. I'll guide you through the rest. Olivia nodded, suddenly nervous despite weeks of preparation. She stepped behind a large oak to undress, wrapping herself in the blanket Catherine had brought. The October night air was cool against her skin as she returned to the fire, kneeling on the soft earth beside it. Mason, Catherine called softly, take your position. Mason moved deeper into the grove, still maintaining distance, but now within Olivia's line of sight. Their eyes met across the flames, and Olivia felt the mate bond between them pulse with renewed strength. Now, Catherine instructed, kneeling opposite Olivia, close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Feel the energy of this place, the ancient magic that flows through the earth beneath you. Olivia obeyed, allowing her awareness to expand beyond her physical form. The grove seemed to breathe with her, the energy Catherine had mentioned becoming palpable, flowing up through her body from the ground. Your wolf has always been part of you. Catherine's voice continued, seeming to come from both outside and within Olivia simultaneously. Not a separate entity, but your truest self unfettered by human constraints. Feel her stir within you, eager to run free beneath the moon. The restlessness that had plagued Olivia all day intensified, becoming an almost painful pressure beneath her skin. Her heart raced, her breath coming in short gasps as sensation overwhelmed her. Don't fight it, Catherine urged. Surrender to the transformation. Let your wolf rise. Pain shot through Olivia's body, a burning sensation that traveled along her bones. She gasped, eyes flying open to find Catherine watching her with intense concentration. Beyond the fire, Mason had taken an involuntary step forward, his expression torn between concern and the need to maintain distance. It hurts, Olivia gasped. The first time always does, Catherine confirmed, but the pain will pass. Focus on your wolf, call to her. Olivia closed her eyes again, reaching inward, toward the presence she'd sensed since childhood, without understanding what it was. My wolf, she thought, my true self. Something answered, a surge of wild joy that overwhelmed the pain. Olivia felt her body begin to change, bones, shifting, muscles, reforming. The sensation was excruciating, yet exhilarating, terrifying, yet somehow right. Then everything stopped. The transformation halted midway, leaving Olivia trapped between forms neither fully human nor fully wolf. Pain lanced through her sharper than before. Something's wrong, Catherine's voice came as if from a great distance. She's stuck in the transition. Through a haze of pain, Olivia heard rapid footsteps approaching. Mason knelt before her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Olivia, he said urgently, look at me. She forced her eyes open, finding his face inches from hers. The proximity should have triggered his curse, yet his expression showed only concern, no sign of the pain her presence usually caused him. Your wolf is afraid, Mason said, his voice gentle but firm. She senses danger and hesitates to emerge fully. You must reassure her, show her that she's protected. How? Olivia managed through clenched teeth. Trust, Mason said simply. Trust your wolf, trust your pack, trust me. Their eyes locked and something passed between them, a communication beyond words. Olivia felt the mate bond flare stronger than ever before. In that moment, she understood what Mason was risking to be so close to her, the pain he was enduring to help her through this transition. With that realization came surrender. Olivia stopped fighting the transformation and instead embraced it, welcomed it. The change resumed, sweeping through her in a rush of sensation that was no longer pain, but liberation. Where Olivia had knelt now stood a wolf with fur the color of burnished gold, eyes gleaming with intelligence and wonder. She shook herself, adjusting to the new form, the new senses, the new way of experiencing the world. Catherine had backed away, giving her space. Mason remained kneeling where he had been, his expression one of awe and pride. Beautiful, he whispered. Olivia took a tentative step forward, then another, growing more confident with each movement. The wolf's body felt natural, as though she had always known how to move on 4 legs instead of 2. Scents and sounds assaulted her, richer and more complex than anything her human form could perceive. She approached Mason slowly, instinctively, understanding that her wolf form might intensify the effects of the curse. To her surprise, he remained where he was, making no move to retreat. When she was close enough to touch, she paused, waiting. Mason slowly extended his hand, giving her the choice to complete the contact or withdraw. Olivia pressed her muzzle against his palm, and a jolt passed between them, not of pain, but of connection. The mate bond surged stronger than ever before. Impossible, Catherine breathed from somewhere behind them. The curse! Mason's eyes widened in shock, his hand trembling against Olivia's fur. It doesn't hurt, he said, wonder in his voice. For the first time in 2 centuries, your touch brings no pain. Before they could explore this miracle further, howls erupted from the forest beyond the grove, urgent warning howls from the pack guards. Mason was on his feet instantly, the vulnerable moment forgotten as alpha instinct took over. Victor, he snarled. Catherine, get her back to the manor. Too late, Catherine replied tensely, her own partial shift manifesting as her eyes changed to amber. They're already surrounding the grove. Huh? As if summoned by her words, figures emerged from the trees. A dozen wolves in human form, led by a tall man with copper-red hair and cold green eyes. Victor Reed moved with predatory grace into the sacred space, his gaze fixed on Olivia. "What a touching scene," he said, his voice smooth yet menacing. "The cursed Alpha King and his golden Omega. How poetic." Mason positioned himself between Victor and Olivia, power radiating from him in almost visible waves. "You dare violate the sanctity of a first transformation. Reed, even you should respect the ancient traditions." Victor's smile never reached his eyes. "Traditions are for the weak gray. The strong take what they want." His gaze shifted to Olivia. "And I want her." Olivia growled, the sound rumbling from deep in her chest. In wolf form, her instincts were sharper, less filtered by human rationality. She recognized Victor as an enemy, a threat to her pack, her home, her mate. "She seems to disagree," Mason observed coldly. "Leave now, Victor, before this becomes something you can't walk away from." Victor laughed, the sound grating against Olivia's sensitive ears. "You've grown soft, Gray. Time was you'd have torn out my throat for such a transgression, but centuries of pain have weakened you, made you hesitant to act." "Or perhaps they've taught me the value of restraint," Mason countered. "Something you've never learned." Victor's expression hardened. "Enough talk. My sources tell me the Omega hasn't completed her first transformation cycle. She's vulnerable, unable to access her full abilities." He gestured to his followers. "Take her. Kill the others." Everything happened at once. Victor's wolves surged forward. Catherine shifted fully to wolf form, a sleek brown creature with deadly speed. Mason roared, the sound so powerful it momentarily stopped Victor's forces in their tracks. Olivia reacted on instinct, her new wolf form moving with surprising agility. She dodged the first attacker, teeth snapping at another who came too close. But she was outnumbered, her lack of experience in wolf form a dangerous disadvantage. A large gray wolf lunged at her, teeth bared. Before it could reach her, a massive black shape intercepted, throwing the attacker aside with terrifying force. Mason, now fully transformed into an enormous black wolf with ice blue eyes, stood protectively over her, radiating deadly intent. The fighting became chaotic, snarls and yelps filling the sacred grove as wolves clashed in deadly combat. Catherine took down two attackers in swift succession, her experience evident in every calculated move. But Victor had brought superior numbers, and slowly they were being surrounded. Victor himself remained in human form, directing his forces with calculated precision. "Don't kill the Omega," he called. "Subdue her. The others are expendable." Olivia felt rage build within her at his casual dismissal of Mason and Catherine's lives. Something stirred inside her, an aspect of her Omega nature she hadn't yet accessed. Without understanding how, she reached for it, drawing it forward through instinct alone. A wave of energy pulsed outward from her, invisible but palpable. Every wolf in the grove felt it, their movements momentarily suspended as the energy washed over them. Victor's wolves whined in confusion, their aggressive drive suddenly dampened by Olivia's influence. "What is this?" Victor demanded, fury contorting his features as his wolves hesitated, some even backing away. "Attack, you fools!" But Olivia's power continued to build, a golden light emanating from her fur as she focused her will on calming the battle rage of the enemy wolves. One by one, Victor's forces lowered their heads instinctively, submitting to an authority they couldn't understand but couldn't resist. Mason seized the advantage, driving forward with renewed vigor. Catherine flanked him together, forcing Victor's remaining loyal wolves to retreat to the edge of the grove. Victor's expression shifted from confidence to disbelief to rage as his carefully planned attack disintegrated before his eyes. "This isn't possible," he snarled. "No newly turned Omega has this level of control." Yet the evidence stood before him, glowing golden in the firelight. Olivia maintained her focus, the calming energy flowing from her in steady waves. She felt Mason's strength through their bond, drawing on it to amplify her own abilities. Realizing his forces were compromised, Victor made a desperate decision. He shifted to wolf form, a copper-red creature with emerald eyes, and charged directly at Mason. Alpha against alpha, a direct challenge for dominance. The two massive wolves collided with bone-jarring force, teeth and claws seeking vulnerable points. Mason's greater size gave him advantage, but Victor's desperate fury made him dangerous. They rolled across the grove, snarling and slashing, neither giving the quarter. Olivia watched in horror as Victor's teeth found purchase on Mason's shoulder, drawing blood. The sight of Mason injured triggered something new within her, a protective rage that overwhelmed even her calming influence. With a snarl that sounded nothing like the academic she had been just weeks ago, she leapt into the fray. Victor didn't see her coming. Focused on Mason, he missed the golden blur until Olivia's teeth closed on his hind leg. He yelped in pain and surprise, his grip on Mason loosening. It was all the advantage Mason needed. He surged forward, pinning Victor to the ground, teeth at the challenger's throat. For a tense moment, the grove fell silent. Every wolf friend and foe alike watched the confrontation between alphas. Mason had only to close his jaws to end Victor's life. The right was his by pack law and by victory. But instead of delivering the killing bite, Mason growled low, a sound of warning rather than execution. He backed away slowly, maintaining eye contact with Victor, asserting dominance without taking life. Victor lay where he had fallen, blood matting his copper-fur defeat evident in every line of his body. Mason shifted back to human form, his naked body powerful in the firelight, unmarked, save for the bleeding wound on his shoulder. "It's over, Victor," he said, his voice carrying authority that no wolf present could ignore. "You have violated sacred traditions, attacked an alpha king on his own territory, threatened his mate during her first transformation. By rights, your life is forfeit." Victor shifted back to human form as well, his expression a mixture of hatred and fear. "Then finish it, Gray. Or have you grown too weak to do what's necessary? Strength isn't measured by the lives you take, but by those you spare." Mason replied, echoing wisdom passed down through generations of alpha kings. "Your life is yours to keep, but your position as alpha is forfeit. Return to your territory. Gather your possessions. By dawn tomorrow you will leave the eastern territories forever." Shocked murmurs ran through the assembled wolves. Banishment was a punishment rarely invoked, considered by many more severe than death itself. "You can't do this," Victor protested. "My family has led the Reed Pack for generations." "And now that leadership ends," Mason said implacably, "your second Daniel will assume the position of alpha. He has always shown the judgment you lack." Victor lunged forward suddenly, a desperate last attack aimed at Mason's throat. Before he could make contact, Olivia was there, her golden form blocking his path. The power that flowed from her this time wasn't calming, but commanding, a pure expression of Omega authority that forced Victor to his knees. "Enough," she growled, the wolf's voice somehow carrying her human determination. Victor stared at her, hatred and disbelief warring in his eyes. Then, with a final snarl of defiance, he shifted back to wolf form and fled into the forest, several of his most loyal followers racing after him. The remaining enemy wolves prostrated themselves before Mason, submitting to his authority and begging mercy. Catherine, now back in human form and wrapped in the discarded blanket, supervised their restraint as pack members arrived from the manor, alerted by the sounds of battle. Olivia remained in wolf form, the energy of the fight still coursing through her veins. She felt Mason's presence before he knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her fur. "You need to shift back," he said softly. "The first transformation is taxing enough without adding battle to it." Olivia whined softly, unsure how to reverse the process that had seemed so natural in one direction. "Focus on your human self," Mason guided. "Picture your body, your hands, your face. The wolf will recede when you call your human form forward." Following his instructions, Olivia concentrated on her human identity. The transition back was smoother than the initial transformation, leaving her kneeling naked on the forest floor, exhausted but exhilarated. Mason draped his own shirt around her shoulders, careful even in this moment to minimize direct contact. "What happened?" she asked, her voice rough from the transformation. "With the curse, I mean. When I was in wolf form, my touch didn't cause you pain." Mason shook his head, wonder in his expression. "I don't know. Nothing like this has occurred in the recorded history of the curse. Could it be because I'm an Omega or something about the transformation process itself?" "Perhaps," Mason said thoughtfully. "The curse specifically affects human connection emotions like love and pleasure. The wolf operates on different instincts, simpler in some ways." Before they could explore the implications further, Jack approached, his expression grave despite their victory. "Mason, we have a problem. Victor escaped the perimeter, and he's taken something from the manor." "What?" Mason demanded, instantly alert. "The Blackwood Grimoire," Jack replied grimly. "The book containing the original curse." Mason's expression darkened. "How it was locked in the vault." We have a traitor, Catherine interjected, joining him. Timothy. He's missing, and the vault security logs show his access code was used an hour ago. Why would Victor want the book? Olivia asked, pulling Mason's shirt tighter around her. Knowledge is power, Mason said grimly. The book contains not just the curse, but other ancient magics. In the wrong hands. He left the implication hanging. He wouldn't dare use blood magic, Catherine protested. Even Victor must know the consequences. A desperate wolf is unpredictable, Mason replied. And we've just taken everything from him. Pride position territory. Not everything, Jack corrected. He still has his life, thanks to your mercy. Mason's eyes met Olivia's across the small distance between them. A decision I may come to regret. Back at the manor, Olivia showered and changed her body, aching from the transformation and subsequent fight. The events in the grove replayed in her mind, particularly the moment when her touch in wolf form had caused Mason no pain. It suggested a weakness in the curse, a potential path to breaking it entirely. When she emerged from her suite, she found Mason waiting in the corridor. He had changed as well, his wounded shoulder now bandaged beneath a fresh shirt. Are you all right? She asked, noting the tension in his posture. The wound is minor, he dismissed. Your well-being concerns me more. The first transformation is exhausting under ideal circumstances. Adding a battle to it. I'm tired but fine, Olivia assured him. The shift back was easier than the initial transformation. Mason nodded, a hint of pride warming his gaze. You handled yourself remarkably well for a newly turned wolf. Most would have been overwhelmed by the sensations alone, let alone combat. What happens now? Olivia asked. With Victor gone. Victor isn't gone yet, Mason corrected grimly. And with the grimoire in his possession, he's potentially more dangerous than before. We've increased security and alerted all allied packs to be vigilant. He hesitated, seeming to debate something internally before continuing. There's something you should see. Something that might help you understand what we're facing. Curious, Olivia followed him through the manor to a section she hadn't explored before. A heavy oak door opened to reveal a circular staircase leading downward. Torches lit automatically as they descended, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. The manor's foundations date back to the 1700s, Mason explained as they reached the bottom. This chamber was built by my grandfather as a repository for items too dangerous or valuable to be kept elsewhere. The room before them was circular, lined with glass cases containing artifacts of obvious age and power. Mason led her to the center, where an empty pedestal stood beneath a beam of light from somewhere above. The Blackwood grimoire was kept here, he said, indicating the pedestal. It contained not only the curse that afflicts my line, but many other spells and rituals from an age when magic flowed more freely in the world. Who created it? Olivia asked, fascinated despite the gravity of the situation. Eliza Blackwood, Mason replied. An Omega from a time when such designations were more common. She was betrayed by my ancestor Alexander Gray, who chose political alliance over their mate bond. She cursed him out of vengeance, Olivia surmised. Mason nodded. A betrayed Omega's pain is a powerful catalyst for magic. Eliza ensured that no Gray Alpha would ever know love without suffering, pleasure without torment. The curse passes from father to twin Alpha to Alpha unbroken for 12 generations. And no one has ever broken it, Olivia asked, though she knew the answer from their previous conversations. Many have tried. Mason said, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries. My father believed he had found a solution through a ritual of blood and moonlight. The attempt killed him and left my mother in agony for years afterward. Olivia studied his face, seeing the toll that such history had taken. Yet something happened tonight. In wolf form, my touch caused you no pain. Yes, Mason acknowledged. A phenomenon I can't explain. Unless what? Olivia prompted when he fell silent. The curse specifically targets human emotion, human connection, Mason said slowly. In wolf form, those human complexities are simplified, reduced to more primal instincts. Protection, territory, pack, and mate, Olivia added softly. Mason's eyes met hers, something vulnerable, visible behind his usual control. Yes, and mate. The implication hung between them, a possibility neither had dared consider before. If the wolf form circumvented the curse, perhaps there was a path forward that previous generations had overlooked. Before they could explore the idea further, Jack's voice came through the intercom system. Mason, we have a situation. Victor has been spotted at the old Blackwood property. Mason's expression hardened instantly. The site of the original curse. He wouldn't what? Olivia asked, alarmed by his reaction. Attempt to amplify the curse, Mason replied grimly. The grimoire contains rituals that could extend the curse's effects beyond my bloodline, potentially affecting all alphas who oppose him. Can he do that? With the right ingredients and the power of the original curse site? It's possible, Mason confirmed. We need to stop him. They hurried back upstairs to find Jack and Catherine waiting with several senior pack members. Maps were spread across the table, one area circled in red. The Blackwood property lies 20 miles north, Jack explained. Abandoned for centuries but maintained as part of gray territory due to its historical significance. And magical potency, Catherine added. The land remembers what happened in there. It's saturated with the energy of the original curse. We move immediately, Mason decided. Full combat team armed for both conventional and supernatural threats. What about Olivia? Catherine asked. Victor will expect us to bring her. He may be counting on it. All eyes turned to Olivia, who straightened under their scrutiny. I'm going, she said firmly. My abilities helped turn the tide once. They might again. Mason studied her conflict, evident in his expression. Alpha instinct demanded he protect his Omega from danger. But he had witnessed her strength firsthand, her courage and determination. Very well, he conceded finally. But you stay with Catherine at all times. Your safety remains our priority. As the pack prepared for departure, Olivia found herself alone with Mason for a brief moment. There's something you're not telling me, she said, recognizing the tension in his posture. Something about Victor's plan that concerns you specifically. Mason hesitated, then nodded. The grimoire contains a ritual that could transfer the curse from my bloodline to another. It requires the willing sacrifice of the cursed individual. Understanding dawned. Victor thinks you'll surrender to save your pack, to save me. He knows an Alpha King's responsibility to his people, Mason confirmed, and he suspects the mate bond between us would make your safety a particularly effective leverage. You can't sacrifice yourself, Olivia Pierce said urgently, no matter what happens. Mason's expression softened briefly. 2 weeks ago, I would have agreed with you. My duty to the pack superseded all personal considerations. He paused, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. But now I find my priorities shifting in ways I hadn't anticipated. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Before Olivia could respond, Jack appeared to inform them the team was ready. The moment passed, but Olivia carried Mason's words with her as they headed into what might be their greatest challenge yet. The Blackwood property stood in stark contrast to the gray estate. Where Mason's home exuded power tempered by elegance, this place radiated only darkness. A decrepit manor house, its windows boarded and its stone walls crumbling, loomed against the night sky. The grounds around it had been reclaimed by wild growth, creating a tangled barrier that seemed designed to keep intruders out or something else in. Mason led the way, his posture alert, as they approached through the dense forest that surrounded the property. Jack and Catherine flanked Olivia, while a dozen of Mason's most trusted wolves formed a protective perimeter around them. The house itself isn't our destination, Mason explained in a low voice. The ritual site lies behind it in a clearing where the original confrontation between Alexander Gray and Eliza Blackwood took place. As they drew closer, Olivia felt the air grow heavy, charged with an ancient power that made her skin prickle. The sensation was similar to what she'd experienced in the sacred grove, but darker, tainted with centuries of resentment and pain. I feel it, she whispered. The curse, it's everywhere here. Mason nodded grimly. The land remembers. Pain this profound leaves an imprint that time cannot erase. They circled the manor house, keeping to the shadows. As they emerged behind the structure, Olivia saw it, a perfect circle of barren earth, where nothing grew, not even weeds. At its center stood a stone altar, ancient and weathered, carved with symbols similar to those she'd seen in the Blackwood grimoire. And there was Victor standing before the altar, the stolen book open in his hands. Timothy knelt beside him, head bowed in submission. Candles burned at specific points around the circle, their flames unnaturally still, despite the night breeze. He's already begun, Catherine murmured, alarm evident in her voice. The preparatory rites. Mason signaled for the pack to spread out, surrounding the clearing at a distance. We need to disrupt the ritual before it progresses further, he said. Catherine, take 4 wolves and circle behind. Jack, you and the others take the east flank. Olivia stays with me. As the pack moved into position, Victor looked up from the grimoire, a smile spreading across his face. Welcome, Mason, he called, his voice carrying easily across the distance. I've been expecting you. Mason stepped forward, Olivia at his side. This ends now, Victor. Return the grimoire and surrender. Victor laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the charged air. Always the diplomat, even when faced with your own destruction. But tonight isn't about negotiation. It's about transformation. He gestured to Timothy. Your betrayer has been most helpful. Not only in acquiring the book, but in providing the necessary components for the ritual. Timothy raised his head, his expression shifting from submission to terror as Victor placed a hand on his shoulder. Willing or unwilling blood is blood, Victor continued, producing a ceremonial dagger that gleamed dully in the candlelight. Stop, Mason commanded, his voice carrying alpha authority that made every wolf present wince except Victor, who seemed insulated from its effect. Too late, Victor replied. With a swift motion, he drew the blade across Timothy's throat. Blood spilled onto the altar, immediately absorbed by the stone, as though it were thirsty. The air around them changed instantly, growing thick and electric. The candle flames shot upward, becoming pillars of fire that illuminated the clearing with an eerie light. The ground beneath their feet trembled. Blood calls to blood, Victor intoned, reading from the grimoire. Pain seeks pain. The curse born of betrayal now seeks new purpose. Mason surged forward, but an invisible barrier stopped him at the edge of the circle. He slammed his fist against it, the impact sending ripples through the air like stones thrown into still water. You can't break through, Victor said, triumph in his voice. Not until the ritual is complete, but I'm willing to make an exchange. He turned his gaze to Olivia. The omega for your pack's freedom from the curse. A simple trade. Don't listen to him, Olivia said urgently to Mason. He's lying. Am I? Victor challenged. The grimoire is quite specific. The curse can be transferred, but only if the current bearer willingly relinquishes it. Offer yourself, Mason, and your line will be free. Your pack will no longer suffer for your ancestors' betrayal. Mason's expression remained impassive, but Olivia could sense the turmoil beneath. 2 centuries of pain, the weight of a curse that had isolated him from all meaningful connection, the responsibility to future generations of his line, all could be ended with a single sacrifice. And if I refuse, Mason asked, his voice steady. Victor's smile widened. Then I complete a different ritual, one that will amplify the curse, extend it beyond your bloodline to affect every alpha who refuses to acknowledge me as Alpha King. Imagine it, Mason, every pack leader in the Eastern Territories suffering as you have. How long before they overthrow you, blaming you for their torment? Olivia felt Mason's resolve wavering. The temptation was powerful, not just to free himself, but to protect his people from suffering. He took a step forward. Mason, no, she cried, grabbing his arm. The contact sent pain visibly coursing through him, but he didn't pull away. This isn't the answer. One life for many, he said softly. It's a price any alpha would pay. Olivia's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then it came to her, the moment in the grove when her touch in wolf form had caused him no pain. The curse's weakness. There's another way, she said urgently. The curse doesn't affect wolves, only humans. In our wolf forms, we found a loophole. What if that's the key? Not transferring the curse, but transforming it. Mason looked at her, hope warring with centuries of resignation in his eyes. It's never been attempted. Because no alpha has had an omega mate since the curse was placed, Olivia reasoned. We're the first. The text said it, alpha and omega in balance can heal what nothing else can. Victor's expression hardened as he listened to their exchange. Enough delay, he snarled. Choose now, Gray. Surrender to the ritual or watch your pack suffer. Olivia turned to Mason, determination in her eyes. Trust me, she said simply, echoing his words from earlier that night. Something shifted in Mason's expression. Resignation giving way to resolve. He nodded once, then addressed Victor. I accept your terms, he called. I'll enter the circle, but I bring my omega with me. Victor hesitated, his suspicion warring with triumph. The ritual requires only you. The omega is my mate, Mason said with quiet authority. Where I go, she goes. Those are my conditions. After a moment of calculation, Victor nodded. Very well, enter. The barrier parted, allowing Mason and Olivia to step into the circle. As they approached the altar, Olivia felt the curse's energy surging around them, a malevolent presence seeking to maintain its grip on Mason's bloodline. Now, Victor said, satisfaction in his voice as he raised the bloody dagger, we begin the true ritual. But before he could speak the words, Olivia acted. With a swift motion, she reached for her wolf, calling it forward. The transformation was easier this time, her body flowing smoothly from human to wolf. Beside her, Mason did the same, his massive black form materializing in a blur of motion. What is this? Victor demanded, backing away from the two wolves. Stop! This isn't the ritual. But Olivia and Mason were beyond hearing human words now. Their wolves moved in perfect harmony, circling the altar where the curse had been born centuries ago. As they moved, golden light began to emanate from Olivia's fur, matched by a deep blue glow from Mason's. Victor attempted to intervene, but Jack and Catherine, seeing their opportunity, broke through the weakening barrier with the rest of the pack. They restrained Victor, forcing him to watch as the ritual he had begun was transformed into something entirely different. Olivia and Mason completed their circuit of the altar, then faced each other across the blood-stained stone. Their eyes met gold to ice blue, and in that gaze passed understanding that transcended words. Together they placed their paws on the altar, their energies merging alpha and omega in perfect balance. A shockwave of power exploded outward from the point of contact, rippling through the clearing, with such force that everyone present was forced to their knees. The candles extinguished simultaneously, plunging the area into darkness, broken only by the glow emanating from the two wolves. In that moment of darkness and light, Olivia felt it, the curse unwinding its malevolent energy, transforming under the pressure of their combined will. Not destroyed, for such ancient magic could never be truly destroyed, but changed, reshaped into something new. When the light faded, Mason and Olivia stood in human form beside the altar, naked but unashamed. Mason's eyes were wide with wonder as he reached out his fingers, brushing Olivia's cheek with exquisite gentleness. No pain, he whispered, voice rough with emotion. For the first time in 2 centuries, I feel only pleasure, Olivia finished, leaning into his touch, as it was always meant to be. The curse had been transformed, its energy now forming a bond between them that strengthened rather than weakened, united rather than isolated. The balance had been restored, alpha and omega strength and healing power and compassion. Victor knelt nearby, restrained by Jack and Catherine, disbelief etched across his features. Impossible, he muttered. The curse was absolute. Nothing is absolute, Mason replied, not taking his eyes from Olivia. Not even curses centuries old. There is always balance to be found if one is willing to seek it. With the curse transformed and Victor captured the pack, returned to the Gray Estate. In the days that followed, Victor was formally banished from the Eastern Territories, escorted to the western boundary, and warned never to return on pain of death. The Blackwood Grimoire was restored to its place in the vault, though its most dangerous secret had been neutralized. Mason and Olivia grew closer, no longer separated by the curse's barrier of pain. Their bond strengthened daily, the mate connection between Alpha King and Omega flourishing in the absence of suffering. One morning, 6 months after the night at the Blackwood property, Olivia awoke in Mason's arms, a realization dawning that she had suspected for several weeks. Mason, she said softly, placing his hand on her abdomen. I have news. His eyes widened as he sensed what she was telling him, the new life growing within her, a perfect blend of alpha and omega, the first of a new generation that would know nothing of the curse that had haunted their bloodline for centuries. Our child, he whispered, wonder and joy transforming his usually stoic features. The first Gray in 12 generations born without the curse, Olivia confirmed, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. As Mason held her close, they both gazed out the window at the dawn breaking over their territory. The world was changing, evolving as it always had, but now they would face that change together. Alpha and Omega in perfect balance, creating a new future for themselves and their pack. The hunt had ended. The healing had begun.